Welcome to Practical Chess. In today's video, we will analyze a brilliant miniature played in the 1988 Reggio Emilia tournament in Italy. Vassily Ivanchuk has the white pieces, and Viswanathan Anand has the black pieces. Alright, this game started out quietly with pawn to e4, pawn to e5, knight to f3, and now knight to f6, the Petrov Defense. Ivanchuk captured on e5, d6, knight to f3, knight takes on e4, d4, d5, bishop d3, bishop e7, castle kingside, knight to c6, rook to e1, bishop g4, and now Ivanchuk plays pawn to c3, supporting his d4 pawn. Now if we look closely, we might say, hey, this looks like we're going to win a free pawn after bishop takes on knight. Now the pawn takes the bishop, and now rook takes on e4. It looks like white just won a free pawn here. Unfortunately, this doesn't work because after black captures our knight, we're either going to be forced to remove our defender on this pawn, or if white really wants to hold on to their material advantage, they'd have to play pawn takes on f3, and we can see how this really breaks open our castled king. And now black plays f5, still kicking the rook, rook goes back, and again, black is able to hold on to this pawn and now get a great attack on the king. So Ivanchuk made the right decision to play pawn to c3, and now we have f5, Anand really holding on to that e4 square. Queen to b3, queen to d6, and now knight f to d2. And this seems a little strange at first. There seems to be a lot more natural moves. First of all, if white were to get greedy and try to take this b7 pawn, black would simply allow them to take that pawn and instead go for a big attack on this castled king. The bishop is now free to take this knight because there is no more support, so bishop takes knight, pawn takes bishop, queen to g6, attacking the king, and this is going to be very hard for white to defend. So queen takes b7 is just a bad idea, but why not play something a bit more typical like knight over here, right? Knight developed, helping to support this knight. If capture here, we can just capture with our knight. Again, our structure is very good. Our castle is safe. But with knight f to d2, white plans to play f3 and attack the knight and bishop that are really close to his castled king. So it's a very interesting and it's a very strong idea. Anand castles queenside, which helps to save that pawn and develop the rook. And now pawn to f3. And try to see if you can guess what Vishy Anand does to save his knight and bishop. Alright, if you were thinking that he would play something like knight takes and then save his bishop by running away, this is a good idea, but it's not what Anand went for. Instead, he plays bishop h4, attacking the rook. Rook moves to the side, and now bishop to h3, allowing white to take either his knight or his bishop. So let's see both ideas. If we take on h3, we've really broken open our castled king, which means that this queen's going to slide to the side, play check. King's going to be forced into the corner. Knight comes down to f2, check. Rook takes, bishop takes, and now we have mate in one, and there's no good way to stop this. We bring the queen here thinking, okay, we're going to protect that g1 square. Well, now the rooks are going to come over to fork the queen. And now no matter what white plays here, we're either going to have to block the open file, and now we're losing a lot of material, or again, we're going to get forked, or we're going to get checkmated. So there's just no good moves that white can try to do to save themselves after pawn takes on h3. Alright, so taking the bishop, not a good idea. What about taking this knight, though? We captured a knight, and now black isn't even going to bother to recapture his pawn. We just play immediately queen to g6 again, making use of the pin. We have checkmate in one. So what can white play? Well, we could play rook to f2, capture, 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 and the material is even. And as we see, black has really infiltrated on white's king side, and they continue to get tempo. After we save the king, simply take the pawn, kick the bishop out of there, check, bring in the rooks, and this is going to be mate very, very soon. So unfortunately, Ivanchuk cannot take either one of these seemingly free pieces. So instead he plays the only good move, which is queen to c2, helping to attack the knight, and also the queen is ready to give some support to our unprotected king. Queen comes to g6, threatening mate in 1. Knight to b3, saving the king. We have rooks out, knights out, rook develops, and now there is one winning idea for white, simply to play bishop to f4. This develops the last piece. Maybe it'll help guard our castled king later, but most importantly, it's going to help connect these rooks. Alright, so if we go back a little bit, what did we play instead? Ivanchuk decides to go for king h1. This gets out of the pin, and now maybe we can capture one of these pieces, but unfortunately there's no time. Can you guess what Vishy Anand played to win the game here? Alright, if you guessed knight to f2 check, rook takes, and now the last move of the game, bishop g2 check. A very nice way to end it. It should be worth noting that if we just try to get the back rank mate, this is not going to work because we're simply going to move our rook back, capture, and then capture with the bishop. And white is completely fine here. Now they've just won a free piece. So we can't play that. So instead, bishop g2 check. This is really going to help us out because if we simply take with the rook, well, now we are getting back rank mate because the bishop and rook aren't lined up. So this won't work. And now for the more complicated version, let's say this king tries to escape playing king to g1. Well, we have a great discovered attack, and we can still make use of the back rank. Rook to e1 check, bishop to f1 trying to guard the king, rook takes with check, rook takes, and now bishop to f3, discovered attack on the king. The king cannot move. Look how these bishops just cut through the board. So the only thing left to do is to block the check and eventually get checkmated. So brilliant game here by Viswanathan Anand against one of the top players in the world, Vassily Ivanchuk. And if you've never seen some of Vassily Ivanchuk's games, you should really check them out. He wasn't a world champion like Anand, however, he has had some spectacular games against Carlsen. He has a good record against Carlsen. He's won just about everything else there is to win in chess besides the world title. And fun fact, he's also kind of the reason Magnus Carlsen was able to play for his first world championship match. In the second to last round, Ivanchuk beats Carlsen, and now Vladimir Kramnik has an opportunity to win the candidates tournament. And then Ivanchuk beats Vladimir Kramnik in the last round of that tournament, and so Magnus Carlsen ended up winning it. So Vassily Ivanchuk, definitely a very strong player, and you should check him out. But this game goes to world champion Vishy Anand.